Progress in our study of short stories and how to analyze short stories, it's important that we cover two literary elements that are, in my opinion, the most often confused and mixed up, and those two terms are tone and mood. When we deconstruct short stories and analyze them, looking for their theme or meaning, tone and mood become very important. So what are tone and mood, and how do we tell the difference between the two? Well, I'm sure you've all used or heard the terms mood and tone outside of class. For example, you might have told your friend that you're in a really bad mood today. Or your mother has warned you to not take a certain tone with her. You know what these words mean in those examples, so why do we need to discuss them? Well, tone and mood in a literary sense have different meanings than they do in everyday conversation. In this instructional video, we're going to first define tone. Next, we'll look at the meaning of mood. Finally, we'll look at an example text and identify how tone is being used and how mood is being conveyed. So, what do we mean when we say an author's use of tone? Well, in literature, tone can be defined as the expression of an author's attitude toward his or her subject matter, the characters, the setting, and the action they undertake and undergo. So essentially, tone is how an author feels about the story or aspects of the story. What's important from this definition, what I really want you to pick out of it, is that last part, that being tone is how the author feels about the story or aspects of the story. When we analyze tone, we look at how the author feels about X or how the author feels about Y. We're analyzing his or her attitude towards what's happening within their story. So how do we do this? Well, tone is revealed through several ways, one of which is diction, which, if you don't know what diction is essentially the choice and arrangement of specific words and types of words to tell a story. Another one is word choice. What words does the author choose to use to describe certain things within the story? And finally, imagery. And imagery is those mental images you get when you read a descriptive passage or part of a story. What do you see in your mind as you're reading? That's imagery. So, if that's tone, then what is mood? Well, mood is the atmosphere that is created by an author's choice of details and the words with which to present them. Another way of saying this is to say mood is how the writing and details of the story make the reader feel. Like we do with the tone definition, I really want you to pull out certain things from this definition. I want you to look at the word atmosphere. What do we mean by atmosphere? Well, atmosphere is kind of the overarching feeling, kind of the presence, the surroundings of the story, and then likewise how you feel within that atmosphere. And then lastly, we want to look at how the reader feels, because that's a very important part of mood. It's basically how the reader is feeling at the time of reading a certain story or passage from that story. And like tone, mood is revealed through the writer's style. Now, as we talked about earlier, tone and mood are often confused. So how can you remember which is which? Well, here's a good tip for differentiating between the two terms. Tone is how the author feels about a story or aspects of the story, while mood is how the reader feels about the story or aspects of the story. That's the best way I can give you to pick apart and understand the difference between the two terms. Tone refers to how the author is feeling about certain parts of the story. Mood is how you are feeling about certain parts of the story, or how the reader is feeling about certain parts of the story.